The chandeliers looked like frozen rain, a river of glass running the length of the ballroom. Strings combed a familiar melody into the air. Perfume and champagne rode the climate control, cool and expensive. Simone Price checked the run of show against her clipboard and smiled at how seamless it felt. No visible seams, that was the job. Outside, the night hummed. Valids jogged. Tires whispered on wet pavement. The hotel's porte-cochere breathed out heat. The scent of hot brakes and cologne. Simone stepped through the gold-trimmed doors to check the turnaround for the donor cars. The rain had passed, leaving the city slick and reflective. You could float a whole mood on a surface like that. A black limousine idled at the curb, paintwork slick as a piano lid. A girl stood too close to its rear bumper. A small silhouette with a purple hoodie, 2 sizes too big. 7, maybe 8, cornrows frayed at the edges. Bare ankles above unlaced sneakers. The girl cocked her head, eyes narrowed, listening to the car like it held secrets. "Sweetheart," Simone kept her voice soft, "you can't stand there. This is valets only." The girl didn't look up. "It's talking." "What is?" "The car." Simone laughed once, because the line deserved it, then followed the kid's gaze to the dark slot beneath the bumper. "The engine ticked as it cooled," she said. "Ordinary sounds." Still, something under that sound pulsed off-tempo, like a second heartbeat under $1,000 suit. "Security," Simone called. Not loud, not alarmed. A man in a blazer peeled off the door. "Keep her back, please." The girl stepped sideways, then back again. "Don't let him in," she said, and her voice wasn't cute. It was flat with certainty. "He'll go to pieces." Simone felt the lines snag on her. "Who will?" Before the kid could answer, applause rolled through the front doors like weather. Jonathan Ward appeared, flanked by his assistant, and 2 donors, angling for one last photo. He was exactly as the profile shots promised. Tall, composed, the kind of face that learned not to lose arguments years ago. Navy tux, no shine. He moved like a man already making 3 decisions in his head. The girl took 2 quick steps and fisted his sleeve. "Don't get in." A valet froze, hand on the door handle. Jonathan's assistant stepped forward, ready to peel the kid off by the wrist. "Hey!" Simone reached the girl first. Small bones under damp cotton. "Easy." Jonathan looked down at the hand on his arm, then at the girl's face. Surprise flickered. Something else held. He didn't pull free. "Why not?" he asked. "I heard it." She pointed to the dark tick. Not like a car, like a watch that wants to be a bomb. People laughed when they didn't know where to put fear. 2 donors did that. The assistant didn't laugh. Neither did Simone. The not laugh was the same weight as the tick. "Get the driver," Jonathan said. His voice didn't rise. The valet closed the door. The limousine's windows reflected everyone's doubt. The hotel's security manager arrived with a walkie and a practiced smile. "Sir, we sweep vehicles daily. It's probably—" "Call the police," Jonathan said. "Mr. Ward, the optics, call them." He looked at Simone. "Keep her close." Simone nodded, without understanding why he chose her, and tugged the girl a few feet back, behind a brass planter that smelled like wet soil. The girl's hand trembled in Simone's, tremor traveling up both their arms. "What's your name?" Simone asked. "Amara," she said, still watching the car like it might flinch. "Okay, Amara. We're breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth." Amara tried, and the air felt like it did before a summer storm, heavy, metallic, full of static. Sirens approached, at first as a rumor, then as a pressure in the chest. Blue and red chewed the white of the hotel facade. A bomb squad truck muscled into place, matte and serious, followed by a squad car and an unmarked sedan. The lead tech stepped out in a gray Nomex suit, helmet tucked under his arm. He took in the scene, eyes moving not like a tourist, but like a man who's navigated a room with the lights off. "Officer Ruiz," he said to Jonathan, who had already stepped forward. "Who called it?" "I did," Jonathan said. He tipped his head at Amara. "She heard something." Ruiz looked at the girl, not over her. "You got good ears." "She speaks languages," Amara said defensively, as if that explained the listening. "Spanish, French, a little Chinese, and cars." Ruiz smiled at that. "Quick and private. Let's make space." They pulled everyone back. The valet line retreated in a scrape of soles on wet concrete. Phones went up. Flash popped against glass. Simone watched the stairwell door open and a dozen staff faces lean into the cold air, curiosity in their hairnets. Ruiz went down on one knee at the rear bumper. The concrete was dark with rain. Gritu. Cold. He put his ear near the seam, then reached under with a telescoping mirror, the kind a dentist would envy. He didn't touch anything. His hand hovered like a priest. He froze. The quiet stretched until Simone could hear her own pulse. Somewhere deep in the building, someone laughed too loud, and the sound slid across the marble. "Like oil." "Containment," Ruiz said. The team moved as if they'd rehearsed here an hour ago. A rolling shield, sandbags, a squat robot with a camera cyclops eye. The robot's treads buzzed, a little insect song under the limousine's gentle tick. It extended a pincer, delicate, patient. Amara pressed closer to Simone. She smelled like rain and dust and the lemon cleaner you only noticed when scared. Simone felt the girl's ribs lift and fall under the hoodie. "You did good," Simone said, saying it out loud. "People hate that," Amara said. "People hate a lot of things that save them." The robot made a small sound as it clicked onto something under the car. Ruiz nodded to no one and everyone. "Back another 20, he said into his radio. Jonathan didn't move. "Sir," Ruiz said, "eyes up now. If this goes wrong, you lose your eyebrows." "I'll survive without them." "You might not." Jonathan looked at the limo, at the reflected ballroom like a galaxy in the paint. He took 2 steps back and stopped beside Simone and Amara. "This close enough?" he asked. "Farther would be smarter." Ruiz said, "Smarter isn't always possible." Jonathan said, "Tonight isn't about me." The robot tightened, lifted. The tick grew louder without changing volume. A trick of nerves. Simone's teeth found each other. "Hold," Ruiz said. For a second, nothing happened. The city kept inhaling. Then the sound became a cough and a pop. No big roar. No, cinema. A controlled spit of pressure, more sting than song. The robot's camera flared white for a blink, then came back. Smoke coiled out, thin and chemical, the sharp scent cutting through perfume and exhaust. A few pieces of something clattered under the chassis like cheap coins. "You all right?" Simone asked Amara. "Still here," the girl said. Her mouth trembled and then didn't. Ruiz stood. The set of his shoulders changed. He looked older by a decision, not by years. He walked the long way around the limo, maintaining his distance, then crouched by the debris. The blast had coughed onto the wet concrete. He took a photo with his phone, then again with a department camera. He didn't kneel in it. Chain of custody lives or dies on footprints. Jonathan stepped closer, but not too close. "What is it?" Ruiz didn't answer right away. He lifted a shard with tong, turned it to catch the porte cochere lights. A stamped logo peeked from soot. "Minimal wiring, minimal everything. Professional," he said, almost to himself, or pretending to be. "Is it over?" Simone asked. "For tonight," Ruiz said. "We'll sweep. We'll need statements." "Not out here," Jonathan said. He watched phones feeding the story into the city like blood. "Inside, then my office." The hotel manager appeared at Simone's elbow. Whisper smiling. We have VIP space. Clear the valet lane, Simone said. Block photo angles. Use the buses. Keep donors moving. Yes, Ms. Price. Simone hadn't known he knew her name. She hadn't known Jonathan knew hers either until he looked at her and said, "Thank you for listening to her." Simone shrugged. She sounded right. That's rare, buying right or being heard. Both. Ruiz joined them, held out a gloved hand. On the palm, something the size of a postage stamp sat like a dull beetle. A thin wafer, edges too neat. This is not standard. He said. How not? Jonathan asked. Ruiz angled it to show a sliver of etched metal, the kind you see in microelectronics. Not car parts. Usually, you build loud on purpose. Noise work. This he tapped with a tool, and they heard that almost sound again. A buzz at the edge of hearing. This wants to whisper. Why whisper? Simone asked. So, it gets past the listening that's already lazy. Ruiz said. He met Jonathan's eyes. Someone made the bomb too quiet to be found. The sentence sat there, breathing in the glass light. In the ballroom behind them, the strings picked up a new song. Without knowing anything had changed. Outside, rain spared them for another hour. Amara slipped her hand into Simone's without asking. Simone squeezed once, like an answer. Jonathan looked at the limo as if it might answer back. All it offered was their faces in flawless black, smaller than they were, easier to move. They put Simone in a conference room that looked borrowed from a bank low ceiling, gray carpet, the kind of blinds that make noon look like 6 p.m. A pitcher of water sweated onto a cork coaster. The hum of the building nested in the vents. A woman in a department windbreaker read Simone's name from a clipboard, then looked up, as if expecting a different face. Miss Price, I'm Detective Lyle. Do you need me to call counsel? Simone asked. The words came out too neat, like a checklist. This is voluntary. Lyle set a small black recorder on the table. She didn't hit the button. We're just trying to understand your proximity. To what? Simone asked. To everything. The recorder clicked alive. The red eye rolled. Simone saw herself in the glossy plastic and forced her shoulders down. I was outside checking staging. A kid said the car was talking. I believed her. Why? Lyle's tone was flat, almost bored. That boredom had teeth, because she didn't say it to be seen. Simone said. She said it to be heard. Lyle lifted an eyebrow the way people do when they want you to fill the space. Simone didn't. Did you see anyone near the vehicle? Valets. Staff. A driver. Anyone unusual. In a tuxedo, at a gala, Simone said. Define unusual. Lyle didn't smile. She glanced at the glass wall. Out there, the hotel's world kept spinning. Bell carts, glitter on floors, a staffer, carrying a tray of empty flutes, like a candelabra. Ms. Price, do you know who you saved? Simone thought of the moment Jonathan's name had landed in her inbox 2 months back beside a wire transfer that paid a year's rent for 20 people on her payroll. She thought of the profile spreads, the foundation pages, the weight of those donors' hands. She picked up a paper cup and listened to it crackle. I saved a person who was about to get into a car. Lyle hit stop. The red eye died. Wait here. When the door side shut, the room got smaller. Simone stood and pressed her palm to the cold glass. The ballroom beyond had been cut open for cleanup, centerpieces decapitated, yards of silk swaddled back into crates. The chandeliers still burned, iced rivers suspended above a floor now tired and scuffed. Her phone buzzed on silent. A text from her assistant. We good. She typed back. Keep staff together. Go home in pairs. Left it at that. Across the hall, another door opened. Jonathan stepped out, flanked by his assistant, Claire, A narrow woman with a tablet held like a shield. Jonathan's tie was off by one button. His eyes found Simone's without meaning to. She lifted a hand in a non-wave, the smallest proof that the other human in this zoo still existed. Lyle returned with a legal pad and a white envelope. "You're free to go for tonight. Ms. Price, we'll need a formal statement downtown tomorrow." "For tonight," Simone repeated, pocketing the words like a borrowed key. "What about the child?" "She's being processed," Lyle said. "Processed. Placed." As if that made it kinder. Simone opened her mouth to argue, and shut it. Fight the wrong fight at the wrong time, and you lose both. In the service corridor, Jonathan was waiting as if he'd been heading the same way by accident. The yellow light made the bruises under his eyes honest. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I will be." She tucked the clipboard under her arm, as if she still wore invisibility like armor. "You." He didn't answer, not with words. He handed her an access badge. "I want you to come by tomorrow. Noon. Office. Please. Mr. Ward." "Jonathan," he said, a correction that felt almost like apology. "Jonathan," she said. The name fit differently out loud. "If this is about optics, it's about listening when I didn't," he said. "I need another chance at that." His office sat on the 42nd floor of a glass box that made the city behave for views. Morning sheened the windows, light, thin as milk. The reception area smelled like lemon oil and new money. Claire met Simone with a nod that wasn't quite a smile. "You'll need to sign this." She slid over a visitor NDA printed on heavy stock. The letters felt glossy under Simone's pen. "You were at the gala," Claire said while Simone signed. "It was clean." "Thanks," Simone said. "That wasn't a compliment," Claire said. And then she was already walking, black heels muting themselves on carpet. Jonathan's office was too large for one man's thought. Concrete, glass, a wooden table long enough to feed a team. One wall held monitors, news running silent on 3 channels, a stock ticker crawling like ants, a block of code, water falling on a 4th screen. The air had a server room chill, designed for machines. He didn't shake her hand. He gestured to the table. On it lay a spread of printed emails, columns of numbers with cells shaded pale green, and a folder with a stamp that read Kismet in a font that wanted to be invisible. "I pulled procurement files," he said. "We source all contracted vehicles through an intermediary. 6 months ago, that intermediary changed." "To who?" Simone asked. "To a company called Kismet Logistics." He tapped the folders tab. On paper, a Delaware shell, and off paper. "Off paper, my old colleague runs it," Jonathan said, and the words tasted like bad coffee. "Cade Blake." "Old colleague how?" "We built this place together," he said, meaning the company. "The altitude, the mask. He left last year to pursue private ventures. The exit was clean. It turns out clean means something I didn't want it to." Simone looked at the sheet nearest her. An internal email thread, polite to the point of threat. "Reminder, VIP fleet swap complete. Cleanup complete." The timestamp sat in the top right like a fly on glass. 2 hours before the gala. "Did you call him?" she asked. "I tried." He lifted his phone, scrolled, then put it face down, as if it might answer on its own. He sent one line back. He slid the phone across. The message was a text, the punctuation too careful. "You should have stayed asleep." Simone felt the phrase lodge under her ribs. "He's arrogant. He's careful," Jonathan said. "Arrogant gets you sloppy. Careful buys a logistics firm under a shell you don't need to disclose. Careful keeps a ledger that never enters email. Careful counts on me to look away. Will you?" Simone asked. He shook his head once. "Not anymore." There was a knock. Detective Lyle stepped in without waiting. The office cooled a degree. Good to see you both, she said, which meant the opposite. She raised a clear evidence bag between two fingers. Inside lay a wafer of metal soot-kissed and mean. Your friend from last night, Officer Ruiz, asked me to drop this by. He's writing the report. Chain of custody intact. Recovered 22. 11 hours by Ruiz. Sealed 22. Sergio. Logged at 23. Lingar. Transferred 09. 10 to me. Linjo. 22 to you. For identification. On record, Jonathan didn't touch the bag. You think I can identify it. You can identify whether this looks like anything your engineers might recognize. Lyle set the bag down. Or might have bought. A small pause. The shape of insinuation. My engineers build phones that hear earthquakes and refrigerators that order milk. Jonathan said, we don't build this. People build for side money. Lyle said, people get bored. Paid boredom looks different. Simone said before she could pull it back. Lyle's gaze slid to her. Vahid. Moved on. I'll send our CTO, Jonathan said, and our counsel. Do that. Lyle said, but her eyes were still on Simone. And Ms. Price, you'll be at family court at 3. The child has a placement hearing. Placement, where? Simone asked. Depends who shows up. Her name is Amara. Simone said. Names complicate things, Lyle said, and left. The kind of person who doesn't mind leaving a room colder. Simone reached for the envelope on the table corner. Her name typed, no return address. Inside, a single glossy still. A freeze frame from the ballroom security feed. Simone and the kid under the porte-cochere. Faces turned toward the black limo. A fluorescent pen had circled their hands joined together. A faint note, in neat block letters. Hinge listened twice. What is that? Jonathan asked. I don't know. Simone flipped it. The back was blank except for an indentation like someone had written hard and then torn off the top sheet. Passive ghosts of letters refused to add up. Listen twice, he said. She saw the moment outside like a slide held to light. The door handles, the gleam of wet steel, the way the car door had been opened, closed, opened again. The kid said door twice last night. I thought she meant a knock. Maybe she meant a hinge. Jonathan moved to the glass wall and looked out over the tiny, perfect cars, sluicing through perfect tiny streets. We swept the cars, he said. We didn't sweep the doors. Doors hold houses. Simone said, houses hold people. People hold secrets. He smiled at that. The first genuine curve since midnight. Come, he said. Claire. Claire appeared in the doorway like a signal. They took the express elevator to the service garage. The air thinned, grew damp. A mechanic rolled out from under a black sedan on a dolly. Grease on his cheekbone like war paint. We need the elevator cameras from last night. Jonathan said, and the fleet, especially doors. That a priority? The mechanic asked without irony. It is now, Claire said. In the corridor to the fleet bay, Simone passed a door with its paint scuffed in a perfect circle. Pivotware. Unremarkable. But the eye remembers shapes. She stopped. The others took 2 steps more before missing her footfalls. What? Jonathan said. She ran a fingertip around the circle. The paint was fresh. The metal under it wasn't. She leaned in. A faint chemical smell. Rose solvent. The kind that tries to erase history. Can we get a UV light? She asked. Claire didn't ask why. She disappeared and returned with a small flashlight from a kit that said facilities. The beam went white, then lavender. When the cone of light crossed the hinge, the circle flared back a ghost of fingerprints and a loop of glue. There, Simone said softly. Jonathan stood shoulder to shoulder with her, close enough for her to smell the starch in his shirt. He watched the hinge glow like a heartbeat you could finally see. Listened twice. he said. Claire lifted her tablet and took 3 photos. I'll log the timestamp, she said. Somewhere above them, a phone began to vibrate against wood. Jonathan pulled his from his pocket. Unknown number. He knew the rhythm of that particular danger and answered anyway. Cade, he said. He didn't bother to ask if it was. You should have stayed asleep, a voice said. Smooth. Amused. The sound of a man who never gets pulled over. I'm awake, Jonathan said. Then this will be noisy, the voice said. A breath. A click. The line died. In the garage silence, the hinge kept on not making a sound, and still Simone could hear it anyway. A quiet that meant something under it wanted out. Family court wore the color of old teeth. Beige walls. Gray benches. A security arch that beeped at the wrong people and let suits glide through. The air smelled like copier heat and wet umbrellas. Simone checked the wall clock too. Wushiyi? She'd been early all her life. It felt like a superstition now. Amara sat beside her, feet not touching the floor, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands. A laminated sign above the clerk's window read, "No food or drink," in a font that didn't expect to be ignored. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried with the unembarrassed insistence only babies have. A social worker with a tight bun called names from a clipboard. Williams, Amara. They went in. The courtroom itself was small. Acoustic tiles and fluorescent hum. A portrait of a judge who never blinked stared down. The bench sat higher than it needed to. Power likes altitude. A woman in black robes adjusted her glasses and looked over tiny metal-framed readers at the docket. Case 1239, she said. Voice even. Practiced. Emergency placement hearing. Detective Lyle occupied one side with a file. She nodded at Simone as if they were co-workers who didn't share a break room. A man from the city's child services department took the other seat, a stack of forms clipped into obedience. Appearances, the judge asked. Detective Lyle. Lyle said, Ni pode liaison. Thomas Kent, the man with the forms, added, ACC. And you are, the judge asked, eyes landing on Simone and the child. Simone Price. Simone said, I'm the one who, she stopped, put her hands flat on her knees. I was present last night. And the child, the judge asked, I'm Amara. The girl said, small voice wired with steel. What we have, Lyle said, flipping a page, is a minor, with no guardian on scene, found outside a high-profile event, making a claim that led to a hazardous materials response. We're recommending temporary foster placement pending verification of background and identity. What do you want? The judge asked, looking at Amara. And then, interestingly, at Simone. Amara's shoulders rose and fell. Not the group home, she said. It's loud. We have certified families. Kent put in, he said, certified like blessed. Ms. Price. The judge said, you were there. Your interest. Simone felt the floor tilt toward a hole you step over, or you don't. She's safe with me for now, she said. I can keep her. Short term. You related? No. The judge's pen made a small noise against her legal pad. Do you understand what you'd be taking on? Yes. Simone lead. Because yes never means the same thing twice. Lyle glanced up. Your Honor, there are safety concerns involving Ms. Price and Mr. Ward. We cannot guarantee a private placement security at this time. We're still investigating. Investigating what? Simone asked. Connections, Lyle said. We don't know if the child was a target or a witness of convenience. Amara's fingers tightened in her sleeves. Simone put her hand over the girl's knuckles, felt the buzzing hum of the building passing through them both. She's a person, Simone said. Everyone here is, the judge said. She looked at Kent. Do you have capacity for a one-night medical check and hotel placement? I want to keep this child out of congregate care. Kent shuffled papers. We could do a night with supervision. New York Center hotel vouchers. We'd visit in the morning. Do that, the judge said. Ms. Price, you'll be registered as a temporary caregiver. The police will do a sweep. Detective Lyle. Your department will coordinate. Lyle nodded once. The judge wrote, and the scraping of her pen sounded like a saw moving through soft wood. We'll reconvene in 48 hours. If anyone's lying, I'll know. She put the pen down. We're adjourned. Outside. The hallway felt louder. People breathed at higher volumes when their lives were in play. Kent handed Simone a manila envelope, city seal stamped in ink that bled a little at the edges, vouchers, instructions, a number you can call that won't answer. I'll call anyway, Simone said. Kent's mouth twitched like a man who had lost arguments with the world and kept waking up. Good, he said. Call twice. The hotel smelled like overcorrected air. The carpet was the color of denial. Simone opened the door with a key card that snapped green and ushered Amara into a suite not designed for children. The living room had knives disguised as art. The windows showed a version of the city that was always dusk. Shoes off, Simone said automatically, and then laughed at herself. Sorry, habit. Amara toe-heeled her sneakers off and put them together by the door. This is bigger than my whole life, she said quietly. Just a room, Simone said. She set the envelope on the desk and watched it sit, official and stupid. We'll get toothbrushes from the front. She checked the bedroom. It smelled like fabric softener and nothing else. You hungry? Amara shook her head, then nodded. Simone ordered grilled cheese and soup, because those don't scare anyone. She muted the TV. The room breathed. A knock. Simone looked through the peephole and saw Ruiz's face distorted by fisheye. She slowed her breath and opened up. He wore his field jacket, hair damp from rain that wasn't falling here, but might be 2 miles away. He held a gray case, and the look of a man who snuck work onto his off hours because he trusted himself more than schedules. We sweep, he said, stepping inside. Your judge was right. You were at court, Simone said. Listening, he said. Old habit. Amara lifted her chin. Hi, she said. Hey, linguist, he said, and the word sounded like a medal given in secret. I brought toys. He set the case on the coffee table and opened it. Inside, a handheld wand, an ultraviolet pen-like, swabs, small zip-top evidence bags, numbered labels in neat rows. He snapped on gloves, white against his darker wrists. Ground rule, he said. If I find something, I bag it. I label it. You don't touch it. Then I sign the log and you watch me sign. Why tell me? Amara asked. Because, if I don't, he said, somebody else says I didn't. He started with the obvious. TV cabinet, lamp bases, the HVAC return. The wand hummed softly, a tune just loud enough to keep secrets from thinking they were winning. Simone watched how he moved patient, resigned. Exact. Door, he said finally. He knelt by the suite's main hinge, big enough to hold a person's bad idea. He ran the UV light, and the hinge glowed back in size and halos. Wipe marks, a crescent smudge where a tool had kissed too hard. The faint scribble of someone's skin. Amara sucked in a breath. Like the garage, Simone said. Ruiz frowned, leaning in. Hold the light steady. Simone did, and he took out a folded piece of blue tape and pressed it into the seam. He waited, counted under his breath, then peeled it back. The tape held a sliver of fiber, almost nothing. He set it onto a clear bag, sealed, labeled it with neat block letters and numbers. H1FBR03, Sir Sit, 26 Est, Suite 1703. Ruiz, he signed and dated across the seal, 1426. Simone asked, time code of interest from last night's footage. He said, I want to see if the same ghost haunts both places. He angled a thin inspection mirror into the hinge and rotated. The glass showed a dark inside curve. Something that wasn't hinge sat there small, vired, painted to match. Ruiz didn't touch. He took 3 photos with a department camera that stamped a digital watermark in its bottom right corner. Date, time, GPS coordinates that would look ugly in a report. Device, he said, almost under his breath. What kind? Simone asked. The kind that listens, he said. Not ours. He used a plastic spatula to nudge it free. More photos. Then a clean bag. He sealed it, labeled it H1DEV01. Sure Sit, 28 Est. Signed, then held the bag where the light could talk. A pinhole mic, a wafer-thin transmitter, a coin cell. Elegant, cheap, enough. Amara watched like it was surgery. Did it hear me? She asked. Maybe, Ruiz said. Then it's a witness, she said. He paused, looked at her as if she kept rebuilding the floor under him in ways he hadn't planned. Then we'll treat it like one. He opened his logbook green cover, ruled pages, already full of names he'd carry around for years. He wrote each item, the location, the time, the condition. He tore a duplicate sheet and handed it to Simone. Your copy. Chain of custody receipt. She folded the paper, and it ate the moisture from her fingers like blotting paper. Thank you, she said, because there wasn't a better verb. You'll get more visitors, he said, packing up. Don't open for anyone without eyes. And a badge you can call. What about you? Simone asked. Call anyway, he said. He lifted the bag device. Inside, the thing looked like a small heart that had forgotten which way blood went. Listen twice, he said, half to himself. Another knock, this one sharper. Simone peered through the peephole and saw a woman in a navy blazer, hair in a bun, like a warning. ACCs. By the look, a man stood behind her with a rolling suitcase, the practiced neutrality of a nurse on a double shift. Open, Amara whispered. Carefully, Simone said. She put the safety latch across, opened the door 2 inches. Can I help you? Evening, the woman said. I'm Supervisor Vega, Child Services. We're here to confirm placement and do a welfare check. Ruiz flashed his badge over Simone's shoulder. We're mid-sweep, he said. Give us 5. Vega's gaze flicked to the edge of the bag device, visible between Ruiz's fingers. Something like disgust crossed her face. Not at them, but at the idea that doors had ears. We'll wait, she said. When the door clicked shut, the room went quiet in a way that felt purposeful. Simone crouched to Amara's height. I know this is a lot. Amara nodded. Miss Vega talked to me once, she said. At a shelter, she looked at my shoes and asked if I had an aunt. Do you? Not the kind that picks up, Amara said. Ruiz finished the labels, zipped the case, and stood. He touched the top of the evidence bag with his knuckle like a priest tapping a reliquary. If I'm right, he said, we'll have an item from this hinge that matches residue from last night's car. Material, solvent, maybe brand, even crooks leave fingerprints. They just carry them in different shapes. He slipped the bag into a second bag, heat-sealed it with a small device he pulled from the kit. The plastic shrank tight like another layer of skin. He initialed the seam. The quiet between clicks and hisses felt like a held breath that had learned patience. Open up, he said, and Simone did. Ms. Vega came in with the suitcase, eyes taking in the room in one sweep. The child's hands, the woman's posture, the man's gloves. She had the presence of someone who'd been lied to all day and still liked people. Bedtime comes fast here, Vega said, setting the suitcase down. I need a signature for the file. I need to see the bathroom and the food. Simone gestuurd. Toothbrushes are on the way. Soup in 20. Vega nodded, scribbled. I'll be back at 7. She went to the door, then paused, palm against the panel as if it could feel. This building listens, she said, to no one and to everyone. She left. Amara drifted to the hinge. The UV penlight lay on the table. She clicked it on and lit the metal. The circle glowed again, fainter now that the device was gone. Still there, like a bruise you could name. She lowered the light. The glow lingered for a breath longer than it should have. Phosphor hanging onto shape. See, she said. Simone did. The hinge, emptied, held the idea of the thing it had been. She turned off the lamp beside the couch. The room accepted the dark like a friend. In the half-light, the metal looked like a small moon set into wood. Quiet, waiting. News vans lined the curb like metal cattle, noses pressed to the glass of Jonathan's building. Cables snaked over wet pavement. Heat from the generator vents smelled like hairdryer and diesel. The sky had that dull pewter that made noon feel undecided. Simone kept her head down and badge up, slid past a mic thrust into air. Ms. Price was the child, a plant. She didn't look. The elevator swallowed her, mirrors giving her back 3 times as tired. On 42, the reception smelled like lemon oil, trying too hard. Claire waited with a tablet and no makeup, which read as war paint. Boards in 10, she said. Lyle's in 6. Ruiz called twice. Listening twice, Simone said, and heard how it had become a joke and wasn't. Inside, Jonathan stood by the glass wall. Jacket off. Shirt sleeves blunt at the forearms. Coffee went cold at his elbow. A legal team arranged itself along the table like chess pieces in suits. A man with the limp smile of PR took a breath to begin. Jonathan raised a hand. Not yet. Detective Lyle entered without knocking. A man in a gray tie behind her, carrying a hard case. She took in the room's money and didn't change gait. Officer Ruiz sends his regards, she said. He sends these. She set 2 evidence bags on the table, plastic fogged where cold met warm. What am I looking at? Jonathan asked. Left bag, Lyle said, tapping. Micro transmitter from Ms. Price's hotel Dorhinha, recovered 14:28 hours. Right bag, residue swabbed from your limousine's undercarriage. Preliminary lab says the solvent base matches methyl ethyl ketone with a proprietary stabilizer. We didn't love the look of and proprietary to whom, Simone asked. Your procurement will tell us, Lyle said, and nodded at Claire. If Miss Patterson will stop pretending she doesn't already have the purchase orders. Claire's jaw went tight. Her thumb moved on the tablet. She flicked a file to the wall screen. Vendor name, Kismet Logistics LLC. Line items that looked like boxes tried to behave. In the notes column, someone had typed Fleet Hinge Service Courtesy Inspection. Jonathan's mouth flattened. He didn't sit. We contracted hinge inspections. You didn't, Claire said. Your COO did when you were in Jakarta. It looks like a bundled service. Safety check. Van. PR cleared his throat. We should consider a statement. Emphasize our cooperation. Our outrage. Anchor on child bravery. We can secure a morning show. Lyle looked at him like he was asking if arson came with catering. You'll consider not contaminating my case, she said. No statements that telegraph what we don't know. A door opened and more board arrived. 2 men who looked like golf. A woman whose necklace cost a car. Someone on a video monitor late from London. Timestamp in the corner. The room chilled a degree under the air of control trying to cover fear. Jonathan pointed at the Kismet file. We cut this off now. Careful, counsel said. Breach invites suit. Suite invite discovery. Discovery invites headlines you don't write. Headlines are already writing themselves, Simone said. She heard it as an echo of the lobby. They all did. A camera flash bled through glass from the street below. Lightning without sky. A chime sounded. Claire glanced at her tablet. CTO's here, she said. A man in jeans and a thrift store blazer slipped in, hair doing math. He took the bag with the hinge device carefully, like a fragile bug. It's not ours, he said. After a beat that included a sigh, Subcarrier radio. Low power. You build these when you want cheap, not when you want beautiful. The board looks Eastern European hobbyist or someone emulating it. Meaning, Lyle asked, meaning, a smart graduate student could have made it, he said. Meaning the stabilizer in the glue is the only custom fingerprint. If your lab can get a brand, we can get a seller, Mr. Ward, counsel said softly. The acquisition closes in 9 days. If we go public with sabotage, we spook the market. We blow a year of work. Jonathan didn't look at him. He looked at Simone's folded copy of Ruiz's log on the table, her name in neat green ink under the word witness. He looked at Lyle. Take what you need. The PR man rounded his vowels. We can draft a version that reads as diligence without panic. Draft something that reads as truth. Jonathan said, we're done paying for pretty lies. His phone lit. Unknown number. He thumbed it to speaker. Still awake. A voice asked, smooth. A smile you could hear. Cade, Jonathan said. A murmur around the table. A ripple through suits. On the wall screen, London glanced sideways like a portrait trying not to move. You don't know what game you're in, Cade said. You never did. You won because we wanted you to. And now, Jonathan said, now you're interesting. Cade said, that's dangerous. He hung up. The room breathed out like it had been bracing for a punch. Lyle reached across the table, clicked the evidence bag with a nail. He's nervous, she said. Men who have control don't make phone calls. Men who have control send invoices with courtesy inspections. Claire said. It sat halfway between joke and accusation. She looked at Simone, then away, cheeks coloring like someone who had lived with compromise long enough to hate the taste. At 3, Simone took a cab to a cafe that tried to be as quiet as a library and failed. The bell on the door chimed once, a small metal sound. Her boss, Carmichael, waited in a booth. Tea loosened. The air of a man who liked control. And lists equally. You pulled a miracle last night, he said. Then you put us on a watch list. Which part are we selling? Simone asked. He stirred his coffee without sugar. Clients are nervous. They see your face behind microphones. They think chaos. I'm asking you to take a week. Let it cool. Suspension. Cooling, he said, and tried to smile. She looked at the spoon turning light into ellipses. Is this about me or about who I stood next to? It's about the way donors read headlines, he said. They want certainty. You wear sharp edges right now. She felt the loss settle behind her sternum, heavier than anger. Who takes point on Saturday's gala? Marie, he said. She can't run stairs and room at once. We'll hire a runner, he said. You've trained them well. She paid for her own coffee. Outside, the wind kicked napkins into a brief parade, then stopped and left them where they fell. Evening brought ACS back. Ms. Vega checked the suite like a person who had learned to count soap bars before trusting kindness. Grilled cheese wrappers sat like proof of effort. Amara showed her the too big row. Vega checked her phone. Tomorrow, 9, she said. Same court. When she left, Simone locked the door, slid the deadbolt like a small decision. The hinge didn't glow anymore. It still remembered. "Do you have a job?" Amara asked from the couch, TV painting blue on her face. "I did. At noon," Simone said. She tried for a smile and got something that wasn't. Amara nodded, small and fox quick. "You can have mine," she said. "I don't have one." Simone laughed, a sound that landed between them and made a shape. "Deal," she said. "We'll share." Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Local." She answered. "Ms. Price?" a man asked. Polite. Neutral. "This is the front desk." A courier left a package. No return. Cleared by security. "I didn't order anything," she said. "Most people didn't," he said, and hung up with the weary gallows humor of night staff everywhere. Simone took the elevator down because stairs felt like proof. The lobby smelled like polished stone and citrus. The package sat on the counter. Brown paper, twine tied with a little flourish. No label. She signed the clipboard. The pen's chain clicked against plastic. Back in the suite, she set the box on the table. Ruiz's empty case sat beside it, a ghost of procedure. Amara leaned in, eyes on Simone's hands. "Bad?" Amara asked. "It depends," Simone said. She slid a key under the knot. "Cut clean." The paper fell away like skin from fruit. Inside, a white cardboard shoebox. Inside that, foam. Inside the foam, a small digital recorder. Cheap, black, thumb-sized. A strip of medical tape across it read, "Play me in block caps." Too neat to be casual. They didn't touch the buttons. Simone fetched a dish towel and used it like a glove to set the recorder on a placemat. She took a photo with her phone, timestamp stamped in the corner. Sherba, see. She opened Ruiz's logbook duplicate and wrote with a hotel pen. Rex 01 received 18. See. Lobby clerk. No return. It felt like magic. It felt like hope pretending to be control. "Ready?" she asked. Amara nodded, mouth tight. Simone pressed play. Static at first. Then the flat air of a room not unlike this one. A woman's voice. "Quiet, tired." Simone's. "Shoes off," the voice said, and then laughter. Small, familiar. The sound of a UV pen clicking. A whisper. "See." The recorder had captured their morning. The hinge had been a mouth. The room had been its throat. Amara flinched like a deer feels lightning in its bones before thunder. Simone hit stop. The cheap device looked indecent now, intimate. She wrapped it in the towel and slid it into a plastic bag she'd stolen from under the sink. She wrote on a post-it in block letters like Ruiz. Rec 01 sealed 18. 49 and stuck it across the opening. She initialed. The ink bled. "This room listens," Amara said, repeating Vega without meaning to. Simone looked at the door, the hinge, the windows, the TV black as a lid. Her career sat somewhere between paused and gone. The city outside chewed its own noise. Her rib cage felt one size too small for the breathing she had to do. "Tomorrow," she said, "we tell the judge this, we tell Ruiz." Amara said, "And Jonathan," Simone added, knowing it rewired things she hadn't planned to wire at all. She carried the bagged recorder to the bedroom safe. The keypad lit soft green under her fingers. She put the device in like a confession and closed the door. The hinge didn't make a sound. The room held its breath, and held it and kept holding it. The courthouse hallway tasted like old paper, dry, stale. A film on the tongue. Simone stood with the manila envelope hugged to her ribs. The recorder sealed inside another bag. Inside the safe's nylon pouch. She'd written the time on the post-it twice, because once felt like hope, pretending to be law. Miss Vega arrived without fanfare. A clipboard hugged like a shield. "You got sleep?" she asked. eyes soft but doing math. Enough to know I didn't, Simone said. Amara sat between them on the wooden bench, hoodie up, eyes on the scuffed tile. Her sneakers didn't reach the floor. The clock above the clerk's window wheezed forward a minute. Metal detector beeps came and went, like a language that no one wanted to learn. Detective Lyle approached with Ruiz in her slipstream. He carried his gray case with a reverence that made Simone exhale. "You brought it?" Ruiz asked. Low. Simone nodded. She opened her envelope, lifted out the sealed bag, with the dish towel folded inside, showed the seam where her initials bled a little, then handed it over. He checked the seal. He checked the note. He checked Simone. Chain intact. He said he signed his name on her duplicate log. Block letters. Timestamp. In the margin 08. Sursan. Lyle's pen scratched the evidence receipt like a small saw. "You'll testify to receipt," Lyle said, almost to the air. "If you put me on the stand," Simone said, and held her breath until Ruiz gave her the smallest nod, like a coach calling a play you already knew. They were called. The courtroom smelled exactly the same as yesterday, which felt like an insult. Same judge, same portrait that never blinked. Jonathan waited at the back row. Nate, face not. He didn't wave. He looked at Amara first. Case 1239 reconvene. The judge said, "Department update." Mr. Kent from ACS stood, papers corralled by Faith. "Child remains in temporary care. Welfare check completed. No concerns." Lyle rose. "NYPD recovered additional evidence last night. An audio device delivered via courier to the caregiver's hotel room containing recordings of protected conversations. We have reason to believe surveillance is ongoing." The judge's eyebrows made a tiny journey north. "At the hotel, with a minor present." "Yes, Your Honor," Lyle said. "We've secured the device. Chain of custody begins with Ms. Price at 1847. Logged by Officer Ruiz at 0813 today." "Who's recording my courtroom?" the judge asked, deadpan. A line that could have been a joke and wasn't. "Mr. Kent shifted. Given the risk, ACS recommends." He paused, looked at Simone, then at Jonathan. "Alternative placement with enhanced security. The child has expressed a preference for a specific caregiver and location." "The location?" the judge asked. "Mr. Ward's residence," Kent said, picking the least loaded word for a penthouse. "NYPD can coordinate a security plan. ACS will require supervised check-ins." Eyes found Jonathan like iron finds magnet. He didn't blink. "My building has private elevators, a vetted team. The danger sits with me, not her." "That's not how physics work," the judge said. "Ms. Price." Simone's mouth was dry. She set her palms on her thighs. "I don't have much to offer," she said. "A suite with a TV that watches, a job that just fell quiet. I can be with her. He can build a wall. Maybe we put those together." The judge watched the girl. "Amara, do you understand what's being decided?" Amara's fingers worried the hem of her hoodie. "I know what loud is," she said. "Simple. His place is quiet." The judge wrote a line. "Order. Temporary placement at Mr. Ward's residence. 90-day review. ACS supervision. NYPD security oversight. All parties will submit weekly status reports. One misstep and we rewind." The gavel wasn't loud. It was the idea of loud. Outside, the corridor filled with people breathing their own storms, Jonathan waited with a space made around him by money and gravity. He crouched to Amara's height and ruined his suit on the floor's opinion of cleanliness. "You okay?" She shrugged, which in kid means yes and no. She looked at Simone, then back at him. "Do your elevators listen?" "Sometimes. he said, but they also move. Ruiz checked his watch. We're wheels up in 15, he said. Different car, different route. If anyone asks where you live, lie. Jonathan stood. He looked at Simone like there were words he had to spend slowly. Thank you, he said. Quiet. The kind you mean. She didn't trust her voice, so she nodded. The car smelled like new leather, and faint ozone from someone's paranoia turned into electronics. Ruiz rode shotgun, radio low. Dispatch murmurs like another city overlapping this one. Lyle's sedan ghosted 2 lengths behind. They took the FDR, then didn't. They cut west, then didn't. The driver seemed to make turns by listening to the car's shoulders. Simone counted lights, as if 12 greens in a row could be a blessing you could bank. Jonathan answered a call on speaker from Claire. Donors nervous. PR composing. CTO building an internal wall around procurement until they could see who had sold them their own hinges. Slow the heartbeat, he said. Tell them the patient is awake. We lost a partner this morning, Claire said. Kismet withdrew. They said timing. All then. They were a vendor, not a partner, he said. The difference sounded like an indictment. The building's private garage opened like a mouth that knew their name. Security in black polos, checked badges and faces, and something in the eyes you can't fake. The elevator's interior was brushed steel that softened reflections. The digital display counted up in a polite voice that didn't apologize for anything. The penthouse smelled like citrus and old books. Light off the river made squares on the floor. Everything was clean without screaming about it. The kind of quiet that came from money and intention. This way, Jonathan said, guiding them past a glass wall that showed the city like a painting. We'll set you in the northwest suite. It has a smaller bed and a bigger view. A woman in her 60s silver bob, eyes like she'd seen storms and kept baking, appeared with a tray of tea. I'm Helen, she said. Jonathan's mother. Amara straightened, made her shoulders try to be equal to the moment. Hi, she muttered, like a password. Helen's smile reached her eyes. Hi back, she said. You look like you need soup. Everyone does. I made too much. Ruiz wandered the perimeter like a parishioner who knew where the roof leaked. He carried the UV light by its neck. The hinge motif. Again, the doors here were flush. Hardware expensive enough to hide its ugliness. He checked anyway. Lyle spoke quietly to a man with the posture of ex-military and a new earpiece. All deliveries stop at the desk. All new staff go through me. No windows open until we run the air monitors. I like windows, Amara said. Small. We like you breathing. Lyle replied. It wasn't comfort. It was fact. Simone followed Jonathan into the suite that would be theirs. The bed had a quilt that looked hand-stitched, which made Simone's throat tighten for reasons that went back decades. A small desk faced the river. A bookshelf held children's titles that had waited a long time for the right hands. Claire stocked it, Jonathan said, noticing her look. She has a list for everything. Does she have one for saboteurs? Simone asked, the joke as dry as chalk. Jonathan almost smiled, and then didn't. A soft knock. Helen stood in the doorway with a bowl that steamed like a lesson. Tomato basil, she said. Not fancy. Warm. Amara took it like it weighed more than ceramic. She sniffed. She ate without looking up, a rhythm that belonged to children who'd had to map their hunger. The room watched without comment. Ruiz's voice cut in from the hall. I've got something, he called, even and slow. Simone and Jonathan stepped out. The living room's eastern door stood open. Ruiz crouched by the hinge, the UV beam turning the metal into a small galaxy. Inside the plate, he said. Someone touched it. Jonathan's mouth thin. My team checks daily, he said. Your team is human, Ruiz said. He angled the mirror. The reflection showed nothing obvious. He took a micro swab across the plate's mouth, dropped it into a vial with a cap that clicked a label, signed, "The Ritual Unspooling, pH Door East, SWAB 01, Sheryi, 42 SX." Lyle's radio crackled. She turned away to listen. When she came back, her voice had that sandpaper that meant the day wasn't done. "The lab called," she said to Ruiz. "That stabilizer on the limo solvent, they got a hit. Only 3 regional distributors. Guess who uses 2? Kismet," Jonathan said, before she did. "Kismet," she confirmed, and she glanced at Jonathan. Then at Simone, "Your security vendor, Vanguard Protection." The name fell like a wrench. Jonathan's face didn't change. His hands did, fingers opening, closing, a measure of a man persuading himself not to punch a wall he owned. "We vetted them," he said. "They vetted themselves." Lyle said, "You paid them to say no to other people's tricks, and they sold you yours." Gray ally, Simone thought, and looked at Helen, who had gone very still. The way people do when another shoe falls and you didn't know you were in a cobbler's shop. "Pull them," Jonathan said. "Now, you pull them," Lyle said, "and you create a blind you can't see past. You replace them with who? Another cousin of Kismet in a new hat. We phase them out quietly and watch who twitches." Ruiz stood, capped his pen. "Meanwhile," he said, "we run our own cameras. Inside your cameras." Jonathan exhaled through his nose. "Do it," he said, which cost him more than it sounded like. Amara padded into the hall with her empty bowl. She stopped at the hinge, watched the pale glow. "They like corners," she said. "People who listen." "What do you like?" Helen asked. "Sudden, gentle, doors that shut," Amara said. "And people who knock." Helen took the bowl. "Me, too," she said. Then, to Lyle, "Do I put extra locks on my son or on the kitchen?" "Both," Lyle said, and the corner of her mouth almost moved. Simone's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She let it ring twice, then answered because not answering never made danger leave. "Price," she said. Silence. Then a click. Then another voice. Altered. Flanged. "You're in the wrong story," it said. "The hero dies there." The line went dead. Simone stared at the hinge, at the pale galaxy winking down to nothing under Ruiz's light. The apartment hummed air vents. Refrigerator. Distant river. The quiet pressed at the windows and held. "Who?" Jonathan asked. "Someone who thinks they're writing," Simone said. Ruiz didn't look up as he wrote the time down. "Then we write faster," he said. In the reflection of the hinge, Simone caught Amara's face, small and fierce, and Jonathan's, taut and tired, and her own, set like a lock you close and check twice. The city shimmered beyond the glass like a promise that could be kept or broken by hands you couldn't see. Somewhere, a door clicked shut. The sound was soft. It carried. They split the day into lanes. Lyle took inside security with a printout of the floor plan, annotated in pencil sharp enough to break skin. Ruiz took electronics, his gray case open like a tackle box. Jonathan worked the phones with counsel and the board. A voice you could hang drywall on. Simone kept to Amara, orbiting the quiet like it could be held. By 10, a man from Vanguard arrived in a Navy windbreaker, badge clipped high. He introduced himself as Miles Gant. Regional Ops. Clean shave. Eyes too tired to sell hard. Lyle clocked him without smiling. "You're late," she said. "I was deciding whether to come." Miles said. "Then I figured choosing stupid twice can't be a career." Ruiz nudged a Faraday bag across the counter. "Your phone." Miles hesitated, then killed the power and slid it in. "You're not wrong," he said. and looked at the eastern hinge like it had told secrets first. They took him to the study and shut the door. The room smelled faintly of cedar and printer ink. Miles stood, then sat without being told. He set his hands on his knees, palms up, like someone waiting for cuffs. He knew he'd earn. "Who's buying you?" Lyle asked. "No one," Miles said. "Everyone. It's not cash. It's retainer work that leads to other work. It's being on the list when a company like Kismet wants a partner, and then your boss signs documents with words that sound like safety. Names," Ruiz said. Miles rubbed his jaw. The scrape of stubble, a small file. "Kismet's liaison is a guy named Rashid Cole. Smooth. Wears shoes. You polish with money." He told us hinge sweeps would be baked in. We installed plates with a dual cavity. One to take your standard screw, one to hide a rice-sized friend. We were told it was proprietary tamper detection. "And you didn't test?" Lyle asked. "We tested what we were paid to test," Miles said. He looked at Jonathan. "I'm not asking for absolution. I'm here because your guy fired 2 of my men this morning for failing to report a squeak in a stair hinge. They were the only 2 who asked me what the second cavity was for." "Bring them back," Jonathan said. "I did," Miles said. "On my dime." "You're not on anyone's dime anymore," Lyle said. "You're on ours. You'll stay. You'll sit on your hands. You'll answer when we ask. Try to fix this, and I arrest you for obstruction with a smile." Miles nodded, eyes on the wood grain. "Understood." Simone watched him and saw a man tilting at a machine that took people and ground them into process. Gray. Yes. A line drawn with a pencil and then traced with ink. In the kitchen, Helen lined up mugs like soldiers. The kettle hissed. She said nothing, which steadied the air more than speaking. Amara sat at the table with a notebook open, drawing a map of the apartment in colored pencil, blue for doors, green for windows, red for places she didn't like. She shaded the hinges in purple. "So we remember," she said, not looking up. Simone took the stool beside her. The paper smelled like sawdust. "What's purple for?" "Things that look safe," Amara said, and pressed harder until the pencil threatened to break. At noon, the building's fire alarm hiccuped, a single cough. The panel flashed and then steadied. Ruiz's radio chirped. He touched the earpiece and went still. "Say again." "Basement," the voice said. "Mechanical room." "Panel shows a bypass that wasn't there at 8. Lyle moved. "Already in the hall. We go together." Jonathan started for the door. Helen caught his sleeve, fingers on the fabric like memory. "You'll call," she said. He nodded once, like he'd been raised by a woman who expected promises to be delivered at speed. They took the service elevator down. The air cooled 10 degrees. Concrete sweat on the cinder block walls. The mechanical room door was steel, paint chipped around the handle. Ruiz slid on nitro, then checked the frame with UV. Nothing new glared back. He used a folded card to lift the latch, a neat trick learned from 1,000 doors. Inside, the room thrummed with building heartbeats, pumps, fans, the smell of oil and dust. A panel on the far wall wore a new scar, a slim metal bar wired into the board, spliced with solder too tidy to be rushed. "Photo. Time," Ruiz said. Lyle took out her department issued and snapped. The click a small formality in the hum. 12:04, she said. Miles hovered in the doorway until Lyle pointed. "You run maintenance on this?" she asked. "We don't touch base building," he said. "We're upstairs toys." Ruiz traced the wiring with a pen held wrong end forward. "It's a remote bypass," he said. "Someone wanted the alarm to behave for a friend. He arms it for the inspector. He whispers it to sleep later." "Can you pull prints?" Jonathan asked. "Prince loves smooth metal less than you do," Ruiz said. He swabbed anyway. "Capped vials, labeled in block letters." Mech bypass SWB-01. Surar 06 Est. Chain of custody would be a rope they could climb or hang from. Camera. Lyle asked. Jonathan hit speed dial. Claire. Pull basement cam. K14 3 hours back. Look for maintenance who never signed in. Scrape badge swipes against visitor logs. On it, Claire said, voice like wire. Also, media wants blood. I'm offering bone. Offer silence, he said, and hung up. They followed the conduit to a junction box. The cover bore a greasy thumbprint, perfect as a stain. Lyle's eyes lit. Not joy. Finally, she said. The powder dusted. The print rose like a ghost's face. She taped it to a card, protected it, like a secret you were ready to share. Back upstairs. The quiet felt larger. Helen had set lunch on the counter, soup bowls sweating on marble, plates of grilled cheese cut corner to corner. Amara had added stick figures to her map, labeled them with initials. S, J, H, R, L, M. She put a little crown above H, and then crossed it out with a grin, shy at her own joke. Security found an uncle, she told Simone, tapping the red-shaded closet. He was hiding. He's gone now. Ruiz checked the closet anyway. Empty, cedar-scented. Shelves, holding spare quilts folded to regulation. He closed it gently, checked the hinge with the light. Moved on. Claire's call came back quick. Got him, she said. Speaker on now for the room. Badge used at 11:30. Belongs to a contractor from Vanguard's subvendor. Cardinal Facilities. Name on the card is James Odell. Photo is wrong. The face on camera is Rashid Cole, Kismet's liaison. He wore a ball cap and a fake beard, like he was auditioning to be caught. Copy to Lyle, Jonathan said, already in her inbox. Claire said, also, your CFO wants to know if we can delay the acquisition close. He used the word auf. And we delay, Jonathan said, surprising himself. We hold fire until we know the wind. You'll lose money, Claire said, not asking. I can find more, he said. I can't buy a rewind. He ended the call and stared at his hand. The sacrifice was not theoretical. He felt the ledger shift. Miles cleared his throat. Cole doesn't do dirty work personally, he said, not unless he wants someone to see his shoe size. He's planting fear more than gear. He planted a bypass, Lyle said. For show, Miles said. The real door is somewhere you aren't looking. Where? Jonathan asked. Miles glanced at the ceiling. Then the floor, your HVAC backbone. You can ride a whisper from the lobby to the penthouse if you know where to stand, and when the fan cycles, Ruiz closed his case. Then we watch the ducks, he said, and we talk very loudly about things we don't mean. Jonathan looked at Simone. You up for bait? Always, she said. Her voice didn't shake as much as her hand. They staged it in the living room by the tallest vent. Lyle posted 2 officers in the hall. Uniforms turned into furniture by stillness. Ruiz placed a digital recorder on the table with a sticky note labeled Bait 01. The pen strokes slow, camera on it like a stage. Talk about moving. Ruiz said, talk about route. Invent a hole. Make it sound almost smart. Simone nodded. Jonathan shifted, let weariness into his posture to sell the line. He stood by the glass, the river, a gray muscle behind him. We should leave tonight, he said, pitching his voice to travel. Helen takes Amara through the garage. Simone and I go roof to roof. Roof is good, Simone said, matching. Helicopter is better. Media will see street exits. Elevators will read like traps. Helicopter, he echoed. He picked up a phone that wasn't on and spoke into the deadline. Claire, book it. 2 hours. Lyle checked the duct opening. Nothing but black and the faint metallic breath of air. Ruiz nodded toward the vent. Then the recorder, will know by the footstep that isn't yours. They waited. There was a hum, like a refrigerator at night when the house slept. The clock slid a minute, then two. Helen rinsed bowls, the water a hush. Amara, told very seriously she was part of the plan, sat cross-legged with her map and added a helicopter in pencil above the roofline. A sound, light, not big, a tick inside the duct. A screw trembled on the grate like a coin on a drum. Ruiz's eyes cut to Lyle, who moved to the vent with the nonchalance of a cat pretending it hadn't seen a bird. "Stay talking," Ruiz murmured. Simone did. "We'll need headphones for the helicopter," she said. "Absurd and perfect. Purple ones," Amara added, barely containing a smile. Lyle slid a flat bar under the vent lip and held. Ruiz went to the hall and returned with a ladder he'd borrowed from a closet marked facilities. He set it quietly. He climbed 3 steps, then 4. The grate shifted a breath. A black micro camera, no bigger than a nail head, sat on the inner lip, wire trailing down the duck's throat. "Hello," Ruiz said to it, softly. He pinched the wire with tweezers and cut. The recorder on the coffee table kept recording. He labeled the device with tape. HVAC cam 01. Sirar 51 est. "Someone still listening?" Jonathan asked. "Less than before," Ruiz said. Lyle's radio buzzed again. "Detective, this is dispatch. We have a disturbance at the service entrance. Delivery insists on making drop to penthouse. Claims Ms. Patterson signed." Claire's voice came hot an instant later. "I did not," she said. "We didn't order anything." "What's the label?" Lyle asked. "Bakery," dispatch said. "Box is pink. Sticker says, 'Congratulations.' Haven't to I've." Helen wiped her hands on a towel. She looked at the map, then the door, then her son. Her face did something old and simple calculation, wrapped around love. "Don't open it," Jonathan said into the air. "Already didn't," the guard replied. "We're holding. Bring it to the loading dock," Lyle ordered. "We'll meet you." She turned to Jonathan and Simone. "Stay. Lock. Breathe." They didn't argue. The elevator swallowed Lyle and Ruiz and Miles, and half a plan. The penthouse door clicked a finality that made the room feel like it had lost pressure. Simone sat. She felt the couch's fabric under her palm as if it could say anything true. Amara leaned against her hip, warm and small, heart tapping a code only children knew. They waited for the bang that didn't come. Minutes stacked. Distant élévateur chime. Muffled voices through a floor that had learned to keep secrets. The intercom crackled. Lily's voice. "Steady. It's cake," she said. And a microphone, baked in the frosting. There was laughter then, quick and frayed, relief edged with fury. Jonathan closed his eyes for a second and opened them as someone who would buy fewer cakes in his life. Amara drew a big pink square on the map and labeled it with a frowning face. "No," she wrote in bold pencil. Then she drew a smaller square beside it and wrote, "Yes," and put 3 tiny stick figures around it, hands touching. Simone watched her write and felt something settle. Not peace, a kind of alignment, like a door hung true after being crooked. The building exhaled. The city outside went on not caring and caring exactly enough. The vent hummed. The recorder's light glowed a steady red dot on the table, patient as a heartbeat. From the intercom, Ruiz again. "We'll need another Faraday bag," he said, "and a knife." Helen didn't miss. "I have both," she said, "and I'll bring plates." They waited at the threshold while the elevator rose, listening to the machine's small song, imagining a pink box that had learned to listen, that would now be taught to shut up. By morning, the city had put on its weekday face horns, steam, and the low metallic growl of purpose. But inside the Ward penthouse, the rhythm felt slightly off, like a metronome, dropped 1 beat behind the heart. Simone sat at the kitchen island. the red recording light from Ruiz's new surveillance hub blinking steady beside her coffee. Helen hummed a song that didn't need melody, stirring oats as if breakfast could solve politics. Amara sketched in silence again. This time a helicopter beside a tall man with a square jaw. She labeled him J. Jonathan entered mid-call. His voice clipped. Claire, tell the board to stand down. No leaks, no statements. They push me. I push back harder. He ended the call. Is finding Simone's, our friendly liaison, disappeared. Rashid. Simone asked. He nodded. Kismet's offices are empty. Phones reroute to voicemail in Zurich. Someone swept them clean overnight. Helen poured tea into his cup. That means they're scared. Or confident. Jonathan said. Depends on whether they left fingerprints or ghosts. Before anyone could answer, the intercom buzzed a harsh, bureaucratic tone that sliced through the quiet. Ruiz answered from the console. Ruiz. A woman's voice, calm but tight. This is Ada Mallory Chen, NYPD liaison. Sent me your file on the listening devices. I need to see the physical evidence before chain transfer. Ruiz frowned. We weren't told of a transfer. You are now, Chen replied. On site in 20. The line clicked dead. Lyle appeared from the hall, ponytail still wet from the shower. Chen's on vacation, she said flatly. Upstate with her kids. Whoever that was. It wasn't her. Simone's stomach went cold. Then, who the hell? Someone fishing for what we have, Ruiz said. He reached into his case and retrieved the HVAC camera, the frosting mic, and the bypass swab tubes. We move everything now. Jonathan looked at him. Where? Evidence lockup, Ruiz said. Downtown. My locker. Helen crossed her arm. And who protects you on the way? Lyle's smile was razor thin. That's the fun part. They split Ruiz and Lyle with the evidence, Jonathan at his office to stall reporters, Simone and Amara under Helen's watch at home. The tension felt surgical, quiet precision, waiting for someone to make a cut. By 11, the penthouse windows showed the kind of rain that just hovered mist, heavy enough to blur the skyline, too light to wash anything away. Simone stood by the glass, watching the city vanish, inch by inch. Helen joined her, arms folded. When my husband died, this was the same kind of rain, she said. The world trying to look gentle when it's not. Simone said nothing. She could hear her own pulse in her ears. You still think you can fix this? Helen continued softly. That if you find the right truth, the system will applaud. I don't need applause, Simone said. No, Helen said. But you keep hoping for fairness. That's the first lie good people tell themselves. Simone turned to her. And what's yours? Helen's eyes flickered, silver against silver light. That I stopped believing. Before the silence could settle, the intercom buzzed again, softer this time. Polite. A man's voice came through. Package for Mr. Ward. Signed courier. From Geneva. Helen and Simone exchanged a look. The last package had come with frosting. Helen pressed the reply. Leave it on the desk in the lobby. We'll send someone down. Can't do that, ma'am. The voice said. Requires recipient signature. Simone grabbed the handset. Then no delivery, she said. Return to sender. A pause. Then, understood. But the feed stayed live. A faint sound followed breathing. Deliberate. Almost amused. Then, static. Then the line went dead. Helen's hand trembled just once before she steadied it. Jonathan's handwriting all over that one. She murmured. Simone exhaled. He'd better have backup. Downtown. Ruiz and Lyle didn't have backup. The cruiser's wipers worked overtime as they crawled down FDR, the case wedged between them like a sleeping animal. You believe the Chen call? Ruiz asked. I believe people don't impersonate Ada's staff unless they've already paid one. Lyle said. You told Jonathan. Radio silence. The fewer voices on this, the better. The light at 49th turned green and stayed green as a black SUV cut across two lanes and stopped in front of them. Another pulled behind. Ruiz's knuckles went white on the wheel. "Not subtle," he muttered. "Go," Lyle said, already reaching for her weapon. Ruiz reversed hard. The cruiser fishtailing, bumpers scraping concrete. The SUV behind blocked the path. Two men stepped out, black suits. No badges, no umbrellas. The first raised a palm. Not a gun, but the weight of power was the same. "Detective Ruiz," he said, voice smooth. "We're federal." "Show it," Lyle said, half-crouched behind the door. The man smiled without teeth. "We could do this polite, or we could do it messy." "Messy's my specialty," Lyle said, firing once. The bullet cracked the SUV's mirror. The men ducked, curses swallowed by rain. Ruiz floored the gas. Tires screamed. They clipped a hydrant. Water erupting like applause. Lyle tossed the case into her lap, grabbed the radio. "Dispatch. This is Detective Lyle. Officer in pursuit, suspects in black SUVs. Unmarked. Midtown corridor. We have physical evidence under threat." The line fizzled, static, so dense it became silence. Jammed. Ruiz took a corner too fast. The siren wailed late. "They're not locals," he said. "Signals blanketed." "They're private," Lyle said. "Kismet's cleanup crew." He hit the tunnel ramp. The sound changed. Roar swallowed. Echo amplified. Light flickered like strobe. Ahead. A sign. "Battery tunnel, cameras inoperative." He swore, "They're hurting us." "Then we turn for Al," she said. Ruiz braked hard, swung the car sideways, engine shrieking. The SUVs overshot, brake lights red as wound openings. Lyle cracked her door and hurled a flare from the glove box. It spun across wet concrete, hissing smoke. Confusion bought them 10 seconds. Ruiz reversed into the service lane, engine coughing. They dove into the darkness under the ramp. He killed the headlights. Only the flare's dim glow painted them red. "You hurt?" she asked. "Just my pride," Ruiz said. He cradled the case. "We need to vanish." Lyle checked her phone. No bars. "We're ghosts already." Ruiz smiled grimly. "Then let's haunt." They left the car, took the evidence, and slipped into the maintenance corridor. Pipes ran along the walls like veins. The air was damp, smelling of iron and river. Above, footsteps echoed too. 3 men scanning with flashlights. The beams sliced through the grate. Lyle gestured for silence. She pressed her palm flat to the wall, mouthing the word wait. Ruiz waited. The footsteps passed. She breathed again. "We keep moving. East exit." Then we call Chen the real one. At the penthouse, Jonathan returned at dusk, drenched and furious. His tea hung loose. His eyes looked older. "Someone just tried to scrub the story," he said. "Not hide it, rewrite it." The feeds now say Ruiz leaked the devices to the press. Simone's stomach twisted. "He didn't." "They know that," Jonathan said. "But optics don't care." Helen handed him a towel. "Optics aren't God," she said, just louder. Jonathan looked at the skyline. "They've turned the city into a mirror, and we're trapped in the reflection." The door buzzed. 3 short, 1 long. Ruiz pattern. Simone ran to open it. He and Lyle stood dripping, clothes spattered with tunnel grime. The case was clutched between them, dented but intact. "You look awful," Helen said. "We look alive," Lyle said, setting the case down. Ruiz leaned on the counter. "They'll come again. They want this buried before daylight." Simone looked at him, then at Jonathan, then at Amara, who sat watching, silent, sketching another door. "We can't run," Simone said. "We anchor." "Publicly." Jonathan nodded slowly. "You mean go loud?" She nodded. "Press conference. Full release. Chain of custody. Team stamps. Audio. Make it impossible to erase." Ruiz exhaled. Half laugh. You want to weaponize sunlight. It's the only thing they can't counterfeit, she said. Helen smiled faintly. Then let's clean the windows. The rain outside began to lighten, but the city still looked bruised. Lyle locked the door again. The hinge clicked once soft, sharp, certain. Somewhere below, sirens began to rise. The storm passed, but it didn't feel like morning. The sky was colorless, bleached concrete light pressing against the penthouse windows. On the marble counter, Ruiz had lined up every piece of evidence, like soldiers awaiting inspection. The mic baked into cake frosting, the HVAC camera, the bypass swabs, the mirror card with that single, greasy print, everything labeled Time Stamped, bagged twice. Jonathan's phone buzzed non-stop calls from counsel, board, investors, journalists. But he ignored them. His hand hovered over the screen like a man debating whether to light a fuse. "We go public," Simone said again. Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "If we wait for the courts, they'll gut the truth before it breathes." Ruiz looked up from the counter. "We don't dump evidence on live TV." "We do," she said. "We show the chain, the time, the proof, then hand it to the DA in daylight, not behind closed doors. They can't make it disappear if 10 million people already saw it." Lyle leaned back on the edge of the island, arms crossed. "That's a hell of a move. Price, better than another funeral," Simone said quietly. Jonathan finally spoke. "Claire can set it up. Network neutral feed. One camera. One mic. I'll speak first." "No," Simone said. "You go last. If this goes bad, you can still deny authorization. I'll open it." Jonathan's gaze held hers. "You're not bulletproof. Neither is silence," she said. Helen entered then, setting down a tray of tea. None of them would drink. "If you're going to light the world on fire," she said, "do it before lunch. People forget by dinner." That almost made them laugh. By 11, the penthouse became a newsroom. Claire's tech crew arrived in plain clothes. Their cases marked studio lighting to avoid suspicion. 2 cameras, a neutral backdrop, 3 mics, no branding. Ruiz double-checked every cable for tampering. Lyle stood by the window with binoculars, watching for movement across the street. Amara watched from the couch, notebook open again. She drew microphones instead of windows. This time, tiny circles connected by tangled lines. When Simone knelt beside her, she whispered, "It's loud." "Right. It will be," Simone said. She touched the girl's shoulder. "You'll stay with Helen. No matter what happens, I know," Amara said. "Too old for her age. I'm good at quiet." Simone almost smiled. "I know you are." Jonathan adjusted his cufflinks, a nervous habit that betrayed him. "When we start, I'll acknowledge the investigation, state the evidence chain, and read the timestamps. After that," Lyle asked. He hesitated. "After that, I tell them the truth, what Kismet did, how deep it went, and why I funded them." That turned heads. Simone blinked. "You're confessing." "I'm owning," he said. "Before someone else rewrites it." Helen's voice cut through the silence. "Then own it well." At 11:42 a.m., the camera light went red. Simone stepped into frame. Her shirt was plain, her posture straight. Behind her, no skyline, just a neutral gray wall. "My name is Simone Price," she began. "Yesterday, the NYPD and ACS uncovered surveillance devices planted in multiple locations associated with the Ward Foundation's foster program. Those devices recorded minors, staff, and investigators without consent." Her voice didn't shake. "This isn't rumor. This is evidence. Time Stamped. Verified. Logged. We are turning it over to the Manhattan DA's office today. But before that, you should know how this started and who benefited from keeping it hidden." She stepped aside. Jonathan took her place. the camera framing him in tight focus. 3 years ago, he said, "My company entered a joint venture with Kismet Technologies. We wanted to modernize social infrastructure, schools, shelters, care systems. We built sensors that could detect neglect patterns, stress signatures, environmental threats. But Kismet repurposed that data, sold access to insurance providers, political consultants, and surveillance contractors. They watched people not to protect them, but to profit from them." He exhaled. The sound wasn't for the audience. It was for himself. "I didn't stop it fast enough," he said, "and a child paid the price." He nodded to Simone. She stepped back into frame, holding up a sealed evidence bag. "This device," she said, "was found in the air duct of a secured residence. Chain of custody begins 11:47 a.m., October 23rd. It links to a proprietary transmission network owned by Kismet. Here's the proof." Ruiz lifted a tablet, projected metadata on the screen: signal traces, hex codes, team stamps. Every piece of data signed and duplicated. "The truth," Simone said, "isn't negotiable. It's verifiable." Jonathan finished the statement. "And if they come for me, they'll do it in public." The red light went off. Claire exhaled. "We're live to 12 million and counting." No one spoke. The city felt still for the first time in days. Then a sound broke it. The elevator chime. Lyle's gun was out before the second ding. "We locked that," she said. The door slid open. Two men in black stepped out, suits too clean for real work, no weapons drawn, but their posture said otherwise. The taller one smiled. "Mr. Ward," he said, voice calm as glass, "Federal Cybercrime Task Force. We're here for your cooperation." Lyle's jaw set. "Badge." He showed one, looked real, smelled fake. Ruiz took a step closer. "Task Force doesn't wear Italian shoes. New funding cycle," the man said. Helen stepped between them, hands wet from the sink. "You're early," she said. "Lunch isn't till 1. The man's smile faltered. Behind him, the second suit moved fast. Reaching for the tablet, Ruiz caught his wrist halfway, twisting it until bone popped. The fake badge clattered to the floor. "Guess we're past polite," Lyle said, aiming low. The taller man backed toward the elevator. "This is obstruction. This is trespassing," Helen snapped. "And I'm tired." She hit the emergency lock. The door slid shut, trapping him halfway. Ruiz shoved the man's shoulder until the door closed on his words. The elevator descended empty. Simone stood frozen for a second. "They're getting desperate," she said. "Good," Jonathan replied. "Desperate people make mistakes." That afternoon, the broadcast dominated every feed. Talk shows dissected the confession. Pundits spun morality out of signal decay. But the real war happened in code. Data drops, leak sites, counterclaims. Kismet filed for insolvency before sunset. Anonymous servers released internal memos showing who ordered the surveillance program. In one clip, a voice familiar to Jonathan's board, Kismet's CEO, laughed. "No one will believe a janitor and a billionaire in the same sentence." Helen replayed it twice, then once more for the silence that followed. "They will now," she said. Ruiz got the official call from Ada Chen herself this time. "We're taking your evidence into protective custody," she said. Real chain. This time, and Ruiz, "Good work." He hung up, rubbed his eyes. "They're finally catching up, or catching heat," Lyle muttered. As night fell, the city below looked clearer, wet streets, reflecting streetlights like veins of gold. The penthouse lights stayed low. Jonathan stood by the window, a faint smile ghosting his face. "They wanted silence," he said. "We gave them signal." Simone joined him, her reflection ghosting beside his. "It's not over," she said. "It never is," he agreed. Behind them, Amara tugged on Helen's sleeve. Did we win? Helen smiled softly. Not yet, honey, she said, but we're still standing. Amara thought for a moment, then drew a small square in her notebook, this time colored gold. Not purple. Then this one's safe, she said. Helen kissed her hair. Let's hope so. Outside, the city breathed again, but slower, like it finally knew it was being listened to. And somewhere, deep in a server room where Kismet's data once lived, a light flickered, then went out. The city woke with headlines screaming louder than traffic. Every newsstand showed Jonathan's face: billionaire whistleblower, corporate traiteur, savior, liar, whatever headline could sell ink fastest. Inside the penthouse, the quiet was surgical. Lyle sat at the breakfast bar, scrolling through legal updates on her phone, jaw tight. Ruiz paced near the windows, his badge clipped to a borrowed sweatshirt. Jonathan stood in front of the muted TV, the morning show looping footage of their broadcast. They're spinning it, Ruiz said. Kismet's board claims you doctored the footage. Of course they do, Jonathan said flatly. When you can't erase a story, you poison it. Simone appeared from the hall, Amara at her side, holding Helen's hand. How bad? She asked. Half the city thinks we're heroes, Lyle said. The other half thinks we're selling paranoia. Helen poured coffee into 4 mugs. Then we must be telling the truth, she said. Jonathan turned away from the screen. The DA called. They verified Ruiz's chain of custody logs, but they want my statement today. Public confidence, they said. Translation: political theater, Ruiz muttered. Simone met Jonathan's eyes. Then let's give them a show they can't forget. The courthouse lobby was a beehive of camera flashes and bodies pressed too close. Detectives formed a corridor with their shoulders. Reporters shouted names that didn't belong to anyone. Jonathan kept walking, coat buttoned, face unreably. Simone flanked him, the envelope clutched tight against her ribs. Inside were copies of the data, the chain logs, voice prints, the recorded confession. Kismet's CEO left on a private server when he thought no one would ever find it. Lyle and Ruiz followed close, scanning every reflection, every camera with an extra lens. Helen stayed home with Amara, promising pancakes and cartoons, and pretending the world wasn't burning on every screen. In the elevator to the 12th floor, Ruiz checked the time. We deliver. We testify. We leave, he said. Simone shook her head. No, we stay until the record's sealed. They'll try to intercept digital transfer again. Jonathan's reflection in the mirrored wall looked hollowed out but steady. If this doesn't hold, they'll bury me before the trial. Then don't give them a shovel, Lyle said. The conference room was colder than the hallway. ADA. Mallory Chen sat at the far end, hair dark, blazer, immaculate, her expression somewhere between curiosity and exhaustion. She nodded at Ruiz. Detective. Ada, Ruiz said. He placed the sealed case on the table, cut the tamper tags with a pocket knife, and slid the contents forward. All recordings, metadata, physical devices, logged, signed, double verified. Chen checked each tag, eyes flicking between timestamps and form. Everything matches. She looked up. You understand the storm you're in? Jonathan almost smiled. I built the storm, he said. They just took over the weather. Chen's assistant, young, sharp, wearing earbuds like armor, entered with a laptop. We ran the signal trace, she said. The transmissions weren't just internal. They fed into an encrypted relay government contract tier. Someone piggybacked Kismet's network to collect for a third party. Ruiz frowned. Foreign. She hesitated. Closer than that. She turned the screen. The IP trail ended at an address in D. C. A cybersecurity firm subcontracted by a federal agency. Simone's stomach sunk. So Kismet wasn't alone. No one ever is, Chen said quietly. Jonathan leaned back. You can't prosecute a government ghost. No, Chen agreed. But you can drag it into daylight. She signed the final page of the custody report and looked up at Simone. You're giving people a language for their anger? Don't lose it. Simone nodded. Then use it before it gets stolen. By mid-afternoon, news broke again. A whistleblower from inside. Kismet released internal memos implicating several senior officials in data laundering. The leaks poured across every platform like oil on water, dark, slick, unstoppable. Jonathan's phone buzzed with a message from Claire. They're filing for receivership. Stock frozen. You just bankrupted them. He stared at the screen. Unreadable. Ruiz leaned against the car window as they drove back uptown. You realize they'll go for you next. I'm counting on it, Jonathan said. It means they're afraid. Simone looked out at the skyline, bruised blue under cloud cover. Fear's not victory, she said softly. No, Jonathan said, but it's a start. That evening, the penthouse felt different. The air wasn't tense anymore. It was hollow, as if every secret had been dragged out and left to dry. Helen cooked dinner anyway, because survival still needed feeding. Amara sat cross-legged on the rug, watching the muted TV. The anchor's lips moved over the chyron. Ward Foundation exonerated pending review. Federal inquiry announced. She looked up at Simone. Does that mean we're safe now? Simone smiled faintly. It means they'll have to work harder to hurt us. Helen set a bowl in front of her. That's as close to peace as adults get. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Later that night, Simone found Jonathan on the balcony. The city below pulsed with amber light, reflections trembling in the river. He was holding a single sheet of paper, the DA's written acknowledgement of evidence authenticity. They verified it, he said. All of it. Then it's over, Simone said. No, he said, voice low. It's bigger now. Federal oversight. International inquiry. It'll take years. He looked at her. You knew what this would cost when you stepped in. She nodded. Cost is part of the job. He smiled. Tired, genuine. Then you're the only one who came out richer. She let the silence stretch. The wind picked up, cool against her skin. Somewhere inside, Amara laughed an actual laugh, high and pure. It filled the space between sirens and heartbeats. That sound, Jonathan said, that's what survival sounds like. Simone nodded. That's what truth sounds like when it gets a second chance. Behind them, Ruiz opened the door. News just hit international. Geneva authorities are raiding Kismet's parent shell. Someone's running. Jonathan didn't turn. Let them run, he said. They'll leave footprints. Ruiz grinned. Already tracking them. Helen appeared, leaning in the doorway. Dinner's cold, she said. But it's honest. Jonathan laughed for the first time in days. Then that's good enough. As they all stepped inside, the city lights shifted one tower, flickering back to life after a brief outage. One more signal restored in a skyline that had learned how to hide. In Amara's sketchbook, the last page showed a city drawn in gold crayon, the words scrawled under it. We're still here. And for the first time in a long while, that was enough. The city was finally exhaling, though it didn't feel like peace, more like the pause between storms. The air was heavy with news, every headline a variation of the same truth. Kismet, downfall, sparks, federal probe. Simone stood on the roof of the Ward Foundation headquarters, the skyline wrapped in pale morning haze. Below her, protesters gathered, activists, journalists, and the kind of people who show up when systems crack. Some held signs, No more watchers. Others just held phones, recording everything, making sure this moment wouldn't vanish like so many others. Ruiz appeared beside her, coffee in one hand, his tie loose for the first time in weeks. They're already calling it the Quiet Rebellion, he said. Simone smirked. Catchy. He sipped, squinting at the crowd. Chen's office confirmed warrants on 3 shell corporations, Swiss accounts, front charities. It's gonna take years to unwind. Years. Simone echoed. That's the word no one wants to hear. Ruiz looked at her sideways. You planning on sticking around that long? She didn't answer. Behind them, the access door opened with a soft hiss. Jonathan stepped out, wind catching his coat. He looked different, less armor. More man. Helen and Amara followed, both bundled against the cold. Amara clutched her notebook to her chest. They're here for you, Jonathan said, nodding toward the reporters below. They're here for the truth, Simone corrected. Helen smiled faintly. Same thing. On good days. Jonathan held out an envelope, thick with signatures and seals. The DA's office made it official this morning. I'm ceding controlling interest in Ward Technologies to a public trust. Oversight board. Transparency clause. Full audit. Every quarter. No more black boxes. Simone blinked. You're giving it away. He nodded. It was never really mine to keep. Helen touched his arm. Your father would have called that penance. Jonathan's mouth twitched. He'd have called it bad business. They all laughed, softly, even Amara. Then Lyle's voice came through the comm, steady as always. We've got movement at street level. Media wants a statement before you go down. Simone exhaled. I'll handle it. Jonathan shook his head. No, you open this story. I'll close it. She studied him for a beat, then nodded. Just don't sermonize. He smiled. Wouldn't dream of it. They took the freight elevator down to the lobby, Ruiz first, Lyle last. When the doors opened, the sound hit like surf, flash bulbs, voices, the hum of a city demanding meaning. Jonathan stepped forward to the microphones, the others forming a quiet line behind him. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The quiet was its own kind of gravity. 3 weeks ago, he began, the Ward Foundation systems were used to spy on the very people they were built to protect. Those responsible will face justice. But I've learned that justice isn't about punishing villains, it's about rebuilding trust. He paused. The wind caught his words, scattered them, carried them further than he could see. I'm not a hero, he said. I'm a man who looked away too long. But this, he gestured to Simone, to Amara, to the crowd. This is what happens when people stop looking away. When they say enough. Flash popped. Somewhere in the back, a protester yelled, Who owns the future? Jonathan didn't hesitate. Everyone, he said. The crowd roared. Later, the penthouse was quieter than it had ever been. Boxes lined the hallway. Screens were dark. Helen stood by the kitchen window, watching the last sunset she'd see from that view. I used to think safety was silence, she said. Turns out, it's the opposite. Amara was curled on the couch, drawing again this time, a door half open, light spilling out. She looked up at Simone. Where do we go now? Simone smiled softly. Wherever the story needs us. Jonathan came in, holding a folder. For you, he said, handing it to Simone. Inside was a letter of appointment, director of the new public trust. I don't do politics, she said. This isn't politics, he replied. It's guard duty. She looked at him, at the quiet conviction in his face, and realized what he was really saying. You're the part that can't be bought. At dusk, Ruiz drove them through the city one last time. Outside, digital billboards flashed. Transparency is power, a slogan born out of Simone's broadcast. Street vendors sold pins shaped like tiny microphones. As they passed the courthouse, Lyle leaned forward from the passenger seat. You think it lasts? Simone looked out the window at the faces reflected in glass towers, some curious, some wary, all watching. Truth never lasts, she said, but it leaves echoes. The car slowed near the river. The water caught the last gold light of day, rippling against the stone embankment. Helen reached for Amara's hand. Look, she whispered. That's the city healing. Amara tilted her head. It still looks cracked. Helen smiled. That's how the light gets in. They stopped at the same rooftop where it had begun. The air was crisp. The skyline, a mosaic of neon and dusk. Simone stood at the edge, eyes tracing the horizon. Ruiz joined her. You ever think we'd make it here? I didn't think we'd make it anywhere, she said. He chuckled. So what now? Simone took a long breath, feeling the cold bite of air fill her lungs. Now we watch, she said, but this time with consent. Below, sirens wailed not in panic, but in rhythm with life. Jonathan's voice floated from behind them. For what it's worth, he said, you were right. Silence doesn't save anyone. She turned, a faint smile breaking through. Neither does guilt, but they both teach fast. They all stood there for a while, no speeches, no cameras, just the sound of wind brushing metal. When they finally went back inside, the elevator doors closed with a soft click, the same sound that had once meant fear. Now, it sounded like closure. Hours later, the city slept uneasy but freer. Somewhere in a basement newsroom, a junior reporter replayed Simone's broadcast frame by frame, looking for what truth looked like in real time. And somewhere else beneath the noise, beneath the headlines, a child closed a notebook filled with doors and windows and whispered, "We're still here." The light from the street lamps caught her face. It wasn't peace, but it was promise. At its core, this story is about the quiet, relentless pursuit of truth in a world that profits from silence. It reminds us that integrity isn't loud, it's steady, often lonely, and sometimes costly. Each character had to face the moment when doing what was right meant losing what was safe. But as the old saying goes, real gold doesn't fear the fire. In confronting corruption, prejudice, and fear, they discovered that justice doesn't begin in institutions, it begins in individuals who refuse to look away. The story also asks us to see the difference between noise and voice. We live in an age where outrage is easy, but courage is still rare. True change isn't about shouting louder, it's about standing longer, whether it's exposing wrongdoing in a workplace, ending a toxic relationship, or simply choosing to speak when silence feels easier. Each act of honesty ripples outward. This tale reminds us that fairness isn't a destination, it's a daily decision. And even when the world feels tilted toward the powerful, truth, however, fragile, still finds its way through the cracks. If this story stirred something in you, share your reflections below. Have you ever faced a moment when telling the truth cost you something but gave you peace? Leave a comment, like the video if it spoke to you, and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, justice, and humanity. May you find strength in your own voice, even when the world goes quiet. Here's to the kind of peace that follows courage, and to hope that endures long after the noise fades.